Hi guys and welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to show you a slightly different, well in fact a completely different take on ribs. So normally when I cook ribs I cook them nice and sweet. There's loads of butter, honey, sugar, as well as the barbecue rubs that can like go down that sweet flavour profile. But today I'm going completely different. We're going Mojo. Let's do it. So I did another video on my channel and I did Mojo Shrimp and I was blown away by it. I just absolutely loved it. I loved the process of marinating the shrimps, cooking those off, and then coming back with that Mojo butter to give it that intense, beautiful flavour. And I kind of thought, well, why can't I do that with ribs? So that's what we're going to do today. So you can see I've got the ribs out here at the moment. Looking a little bit grey, but that's because they've been in that marinade for the entire night. But let me talk you through that process that I did last night. So as always, the ingredients are listed in the description below, but to start with you're going to need the juice of 5 limes. So just slice those in half and then get yourself a juicer like this one and just give them a good old squeeze, and that's the juice of 5 limes. To that you're going to then add a big bunch of coriander. So this is fresh coriander. So just get a big bunch of this. I find that if I squeeze it into a big roll it into kind of a ball and then just finely chop this kind of like cuts up really nicely. So we just want to cut this nice and fine just so we can get as much of that flavour out of the coriander, the leaves and the stalks as possible. So once we've chopped all this up, we then add it to the lime juice. Just chuck it all in there. Next you're going to get a chilli. You can choose whatever chilli you want in terms of heat. This one isn't particularly hot, so again it's just a background flavour. And what we want to do in this is obviously cut the top off, slice it down the middle so we've got 2 halves, and then scrape out the seeds and the membrane. Again, this isn't a hot one so you don't have to worry about this too much, but it's just a little step that you can do. So get the chilli, run your knife down the middle of it, don't go all the way to the tip, and just helps keep that chilli together. It's just a quicker way of chopping it basically. So we want to cut these relatively coarsely. Again, we're just trying to get the flavour and a little bit of heat out of the chilli. So don't worry about this too much. Just, you know, chop it as good as you can do. And then add this to the mixture. So next we're going to get 1 white onion. So I've cut it in half and obviously peeled it. There's a little trick that I do. So I slice in towards the root. And I do that as many times as the actual onion will allow. So 3 times in this instance. And then I cut down and I cut at an angle, so it's not dead straight, it's at a slight angle. And what you will find is that when you start to then slice this up from the tip, minding your fingers, you'll get a really fine chop on that onion. So that's what we want, when we dice really nice and finely. You get a really nice fine dice. So we add that to the rest of the marinade. Next we get some paprika. This is just smoked paprika. You want a couple of teaspoons of paprika. So next is cumin, ground cumin, and you want a teaspoon and a half of this. And then you add a 2 teaspoons of oregano. And lastly, 2 teaspoons of salt. And this is kosher salt. You don't want to use it too fine. You don't want table salt. It has to be kind of like a course. Then it's time to add the orange juice. Now my kids have raided this before, so I basically poured everything I have in there, but essentially you need enough liquid to cover the ribs completely. Give that a good mix up just to mix and meld all those flavours together. So onto the ribs. So these are St. Louis cut ribs and they shouldn't need a lot of work, because you can see there's a scraggy thin bit on the end, and that's just going to burn up when you cook, and it's not going to be very nice at all, so just trim that off. Next is to take the main brain off the back. Now a lot of people will leave it on, they might score it. I hate it. So the idea here is that you get your finger under it, lift up the membrane a little bit, get a paper towel, and then give it a good old touch. Just be very careful when you're starting off, just to try and pull it up the edge so that you can try and pull it off as much as you can do in one go. The problem being is that if you split it, you end up like sitting there picking off absolutely edges, it's a real pain. But you know, I don't want to go the majority off, and I'm just going to go back and just pull the rest of that membrane off the back, and then flip it over so you can see that bone on the end there. because that's really sharp, and all that's going to do is tear through or puncture through our tin foil later on in the cook, and we don't want that. So let's take that off so we can square up that rib so it's looking good. So these are both ribs now, so they're both being, like I say, trimmed up and the membrane taken off. Next you want to get yourself a Perspex container, or any container that is big enough for the ribs to go in. So we're going to cover the ribs completely in the marinade that we've done. You can see I've got one down first, so I can try and get as much on there as possible. In fact, turning it over is probably more sensible because then it's sat in the actual marinade. Put the other one on top and then pour the rest of the marinade over. And then lastly, let's cover these in cling film, and these are going to go in the fridge overnight. So I didn't quite have enough orange juice, and darn kids got in there first and drunk, well, only a little bit of it to be fair to them. But what I did is just rotated the ribs during the night, a little bit this morning as well, just so they had a decent time both in that marinade. And then all I've done is just rinse that marinade off, but I have kept a good cup of that Mojo sauce to one side, so we're going to need that for our butter later. So the next thing to do is to season these up. Now in here, they are fairly wet anyway, but in here I've just got water, nothing else. Sometimes I use a mixture of apple cider vinegar and water, or Worcester sauce, but today it is just plain water. So I'm just going to give this a quick spritz, same on the back, and then this is Sure Shot Sid's, and this is their coffee rub, and I've been so impressed with this. It's got such a really nice flavour profile to it, and because it's quite coarse, it just makes it a real versatile rub. So let's give this a decent coating on the back of here. I'm not going to go too heavy. I just want those pepper granules to help catch that smoke. So I'm just going to let those sit to one side for 10 minutes. We're doing it on the offset smoker today, and that's running at 275. I'm going to do this as quite a quick cook. I'm way behind where I should be today, and it's autumn, so it's getting dark really early. So I'm just going to run this at 275. And when it reaches a point where I think the bark is about right, then we're going to wrap these. So these have had 10 minutes, that rub has adhered really nicely. It's time to put these on the smoker. Now the only bit of advice I'll give about this is, obviously with your smoker, you know where your hot and colder spots are. Try and get it in a nice decent medium, but also when you put it on, when you put this rack of ribs on, push the bones together so that meat plumps up. And basically what happens is that the way you put these on the pit is how that meat will set. And if you push those bones together, then when you take a bite between those ribs, you're going to have a lot of plumper, more juicy, more satisfying bite basically, and that's what we want. So let's put these on. So you see, just push these together, get all that meat to plump up. And also you notice I've got the heavier, more chunky side towards the firebox, because you're going to get the heat hit here, flow over, and you kind of want the thicker part nearer the fire, because it can just take that heat a little bit better than these thinner parts. Right, let's shut this down, and we're going to let this roll for a couple of hours on, and then we'll check back and see how they're doing. Right, so we're about 3 hours in, and as you can see, they've got some really beautiful colour in them. So all I've literally done is just spritzed occasionally along this edge in particular with water. That's all I've done, and you can see the gorgeous colour that is developing on these. So the internal temperature at the moment is, so that's 165. So I reckon these are pretty good to come off. Let's take these out, wrap them up, and then we'll carry on. Right, okay, so what I've got here is 2 sheets of tin foil. They're not particularly wide, so I've overlapped them. Silver, the shiny side up, because that's going to reflect the heat back into the rib. So let's grab them. Okay, so they're not the biggest of ribs, but you can see there, it's got some beautiful bark forming. It's all like dice. So you can see there when we push the rib together, that stayed all nice and plump. So all we're going to do to these, and it is quite simply, so this is the pork tallow that I rendered down from that pork butt, and all I'm literally going to do is put that on top. It's going to be that simple. I'm not adding any rub to it, I'm not adding any more flavours at all. All I'm going to do is get that fat, that juiciness back in. When we come to do the end bit, we're going to sauce them up, and that's when we're going to like put that flavour that we'd normally put at this stage. So at the moment, I'm just going to let them sit in this fat. In fact, let's turn them upside down. Perfect. Let's fold these over. Just be careful not to tear through the actual tin foil. Perfect. And we're going to put them back in, meat side down. So all that fat is going to sit in there, and the meat's going to just go suck it up, and that'll be perfect. Right, I'll do the other one and I'll catch you back. So the other thing we're going to do is make ourselves a butter. So I'm going to use 250 grams of butter, because in my opinion you can never have too much butter. So this butter's going to melt on all these different spices and herbs and everything that we're going to put in there. It's going to combine and taste fantastic. So to that butter, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and also 1 teaspoon of paprika. You can adjust those as much as you want. Paprika, that's just there for a bit of colour and a bit of flavour. But if you don't like it hot, leave out the cayenne pepper. If you like it hotter, add some more. Totally up to you. So we'll put that in. And then lastly, we need half a teaspoon of that in. So the last thing we need to add to this is just a bit of our Mojo sauce. So let's add, say, a good 2 tablespoons. So this is obviously going to cook through, so this can melt down nicely. Right, so a bit of a change of venue now. So these were back in the smoker in the foil, so they went for another 2.5 hours, and they are perfect. You can tell like the bend of them, so when I pick them up, they got a nice bit of bend on them. You can tell there's a lot of give in there. So let's open these up. Oh, look at those. Look how juicy they are. They look absolutely amazing. And you can see bones are starting to pull back, so you've got that meat starting to come together. So when you have that bite, you have a really juicy, beautiful mouthful of beautiful pork. Right, so we're going to cut these, but we're going to cut them from the back. So where the bones are, if you come from the back, it's just a lot easier. Just pull your knife through. In fact, let me take this out of the tin foil. In fact, we've already had one completely escape. I mean, that's when you know you've cooked it proper. That bone is so, just slides out. So we're just going to slice these up. We're going to put them face down in here. I mean, look at that side angle. Look at that. You can see how juicy and moist that is. You know that's going to be a fantastic bite. Okay, so let's put these in here. Now I like my ribs like this. Some people don't, and some people want the old bite, but actually these, I'm happy as Larry. Let's quickly do the other set. And flip these over. Okay, so there are our ribs all nicely cut up. You can see they look absolutely gorgeous, beautiful colour where that smoke's hit them, and they're cooked to perfection. So I've made my Mojo sauce, which I can't open because I've got gloves on. So what we're going to do is going to pour this sauce all over these ribs, and this is going to be absolutely gorgeous. And that's it, look at that. You've got that beautiful rib, now it's juicy, you've got all that sauce all over it. That is going to be incredible. So thanks for watching today guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it the old thumbs up. If you loved it, please subscribe to the channel. And if you really enjoyed this video, please go and check this one out where I show you how to make a bacon pie.